Hi, True Crime Grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee, the host of the True Crime Grapevine, and this is our nightly nightcap. I don't know why I'm saying me, myself, and I guess that's we, used to do a weekly roundup, and there is hashtag too much crime, not enough time. So I had to go to a nightly nightcap. It's a little more informal. I think I'm going to try to do uploaded videos that are edited by my editor, meaning kid, who is a real producer, actually. Maybe for the big cases, um, but right now, what we have live. All right, so we have a couple things going on tonight. Of course, everybody's still talking about Brian Kohlberger and the Idaho 4, and he had, his arraignment, and his preliminary hearing is coming up on the 12th. Sorry, I'm looking at my calendar here. But before that preliminary hearing, this is the week of preliminary hearings. We have Leilani Simon, who was the mother who's accused of killing her 20-month-old Quentin Simon in Savannah, Georgia this summer. She has her preliminary hearing on the 11th, as well as a blast from the past. You might remember Larry Miliete, a husband who didn't know where his wife went. I mean, she asked for a divorce. Her last call was to a divorce attorney, and she, poof, disappeared. Interestingly enough, similar to the Idaho case, there was a neighborhood security camera that caught some bangs. Now, the FBI couldn't say because it was further away than what, it wasn't the 50 feet that we hear that is involved in hearing what happened at 1122 King Street Road in Moscow, Idaho. But circumstantially, the fact there was also, I believe, holes in the wall the next day when her sister came to find out where she was. She had taken a 12-hour trip. So, oh, it says my connection is unstable. Oh no, my connection is just like me, a little unstable. Oh, it says my connection is unstable. Oh no, my connection is just like me, a little unstable. That's okay. I don't think anybody's in the chat right now anyway, so we're all good. We can be as unstable as we want to be, but this will be up for any replay viewers. My channel is really tiny right now. Hopefully it'll grow. I am a educational psychologist by trade, a mother of three. I am ABD, which is all but dissertation in educational psychology. I studied teachers and also other people's core, how it affects and interacts with their personality, how cognition works, motivation. That was all the areas that I was interested in. And you can probably guess that dovetails really true crime, motivation, how people problem solve, think, critical reasoning. Heuristics are the little shortcut rules that we all make, or schemas, our ideas in our brain. All of that comes into play a lot in criminal psychology too. Although I did not major in criminal psychology, I studied typical development and how typical people think. Cover a little bit of abnormal. Anyways, so I have that type of background. I also have a little pro se, meaning I represented myself in some very interesting cases, like kind of by accident. Nothing criminal. So I do have a background involving representation in the criminal system, and really did a lot of research, especially in educational law, which involved civil rights law, insurance law, contract law, federal and state law. Very interesting stuff. All right, so that's my background. If you're new, hey, welcome. It's free to like and subscribe if you want to. That'd be great. So what are we going to talk about first? I wanted to highlight somebody first. I call my sources. So as a PhD student, I'm used to citing. Academically, it's all about citations. Actually, in the law, what law and what cases support how the law is used. So I'm big about giving you guys my sourcing. So what I do is I watch all the YouTubers, not every single one, obviously. I watch very specific YouTubers, but I try to watch some that are lawyers, some that are psychologists, some that are journalists working with psychologists, or journalists who are like national journalists who have started a YouTube channel and pull in really good experts, as well as a lot of or retired, excuse me, uh, um, law enforcement, Ellie, they have really great experts. Like Duty Ron has a death investigator. He's pulled in people that know about, when we talked about Harmony Montgomery, about the child welfare and protective systems. Um, a new channel that I am watching that I want to highlight today for you. One of my main squeezes, my new main squeezes. His name is Ken Maines. His channel is called Unsolved No More. And it's not like I have to push his channel that he isn't well known. He wrote a book called Unsolved No More. He is an ex Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I think he was a cop on the beat. Then he was an undercover detective doing drugs and organized crime type stuff. So like he really got into like knowing all about the criminal mind, because you have to be able to deal with people. Oh, hi, there's someone here. Suzanne finally caught me live. I will usually something's wrong with my sounds. Let's see. Can you hear me now? I feel like now I'm a Verizon person. My microphone seems to be on. Can you hear me, Suzanne? Suzanne, can you hear me? I guess you wouldn't know unless I held up a sign, right? Hopefully. Can you hear me? Hopefully. I don't know how to check. I don't know how to do anything technological. Let's make sure my microphone is on. That muted me. Is my microphone on? I feel like I need somebody to tell me. I just checked the sound problem. Must be on your. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Suzanne. Uh, oh, yes, Kate. Oh, hi, Kate. Can you hear me, Kate? It is on? Okay. All right. Well, hopefully Suzanne can hear me. Thank you, Kate. All right. So this seems like a good time to tell you what I'm drinking tonight. When I started this, I used to have a drink for every case, and I had about 8 cases that took 3 hours, and I'd be smashed by the end, and then I was sick the next day. Oh, it's very loud in your house. Well, Kate, I'm a very loud person. So tonight I have a Sonic cherry lime, but it's dirty. It's a dirty cherry limeade. And so I added some of my own cherries and a little vodka. So drink it if you got them. And Suzanne, if you can't hear me, I will always be on. It's not a dirty Shirley. It's a dirty Sonic cherry limeade. I will always be on at around 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for my nightcaps. All right. So I was telling you about Ken Maines. His YouTube channel is called Unsolved No More. And he comes from the perspective of, so he was an undercover cop in Philadelphia. He worked with the FBI in that respect. So he has federal work. Okay, Suzanne, do that. All right. His channel used to be just about cold cases. In fact, he started a cold case foundation. He's retired now. And I guess he lives in rural Pennsylvania, but he knows a lot of the experts in cold cases. He actually knows Dr. Ramsland, who we've talked a lot about in relation to Dennis Rader, BTK, which stands for Bind, Torture, Kill. And that was the professor at DeSale University with whom Brian Kohlberger studied. Working out was you. All right. Yay. All right. So Suzanne, now that you can hear me, we're drinking a dirty Sonic limeade because I like things sweet. And it's dirty by meaning I put a little vodka in it. So it's Belvedere mixed berry. I wanted my Tito's, but somebody seems to have stolen it. Speaking of a crime. All right. So that's what we're pairing tonight's that's tonight's nightcap. So go over and check out Ken Main's Unsolved No More YouTube. He's been talking to a inmate on death row, sort of getting, this guy was he's at San Quentin, and if you know anything about San Quentin, it's where Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, um, was housed. It is where I think he even met Manson maybe for a short time. He's met other serial killers in California. He just had one, not just, that sounds horrible. He had one murder, but he was 18 at the time. He was sentenced, I mean, circumstances, he was sentenced to death. But California doesn't use their death penalty, I don't think, right now. So, anyways, but he has a unique perspective, and Ken Maines sort of is working with him. And he has some videos of that conversation talking about the Idaho case. And then once they identified the suspect, Brian Kohlberger, talking about him. I highly recommend that channel. And I just wanted to tell you that because I kind of want to give you, just want to do a little highlight about a source for every case. Okay, so going through the affidavit of Brian Kohlberger, sticking with the Idaho for, I'm not going to talk too much about it because there's not a lot of new things. There's people are starting to spin again, because when new things don't come out, people go off and get very creative. They want to talk about something and they start finding things, going down rabbit holes. And I don't want to give a lot of that air, only because now we know who the suspect is. He is on going through the adjudication process, and talking a lot about it ruins the it can affect the jury pool. It probably will be moved from Moscow, Idaho, and it is Moscow, not Moscow. And I remember it by saying Moscow, Idaho. It probably will be moved to a bigger venue. Like, it's more people, let people know or have been like directly affected by it, because right now it's in the university town. They may have known at least one of the 4 victims. So it would be not a very good jury pool. The town only has, I believe we said 25,000 people, and 11,000 of them are actual students, with probably a lot more being ancillary staff. So it probably will be moved to Boise, like the Daybell case, the Vallow Daybell case. And that comes along with a lot of difficulties, because now Boise, that is going to be a 10-week case, the Vallow, starting in April. And so now if they get this Idaho 4 case, it's going to be a little crazy. So I don't know when we'll see. Now, Brian, like I said, we will see him in court in Moscow. He's being represented by, it's county 1 over, I believe. The woman's name is, get this, I think it's interesting just because I like clothes, Ann Taylor. She's a public defender. She seems to be really with it on the ball. All the commentators say he's got a really good lawyer. Today, or yeah, when he was in court, just to answer, just for his arraignment on last Friday, all he did was say yes to every question or no. Like, basically he was read his charges. He was told what the penalties would be. He was told his rights, and this is standard fare. In fact, the judge, she will not be to be sufficient. And so we're going to have a probable cause hearing for him later this week on Thursday. If you want to know more about the affidavit that was released on Friday, when he came to Idaho Thursday evening, Friday morning, he was in court. When he had access to it with his lawyer representation, that it was allowed to be released to the public. I talked a little bit about it. It's not everything they know. It's just enough to give probable cause. Like, he probably caused this and should be, locked up and put on trial. And so that's the process that we're going through. You need a nightcap, Suzanne. Great idea. make me not sleep well. The whole roommate thing has me confused. Okay, since Suzanne's in the chat and she's here tonight, I'll just review a little bit about the roommate thing. Dylan, DM in the affidavit is a young lady. I believe Xana's was with Ethan down the hall. You had to either step up or step down into the living room, go past the bathroom, down a hallway to get to her bedroom. The girls were, if you walked out of the room that Dylan was in, there was a staircase, and they were like, then you make like a hairpin turn. They were right above her. She woke up at 4 o'clock hearing what she thought, as far as we know. So we only know what they've said in the probable cause affidavit. They don't tell you everything, just enough so that, because they don't want to give the defendant everything. It's kind of a little gamemanship. Whether you think it's fair or not, that's how that goes. So, I mean, now that the trial, if he goes to trial after the preliminary hearing, he'll get discovery, which means he'll get everything. But right now, what he knows is what was in the probable cause affidavit. And what that said, the parts that they said were that Dylan first heard around 4 o'clock what sounded like the dog Murphy barking. And she thought in her head, it was like, these girls had been out. They came, Dylan and Bethany, the two roommates that survived, they said they came home around 1 o'clock. We assumed they'd been out. Maybe getting a night, maybe stopping at Sonic and other places. So she's awoken, probably wasn't fully asleep, but she hears the dog barking. Kaylee, like, oh great, Kaylee's playing with the dog, but Kaylee was moving out, so she's probably, whatever. The house was very busy. It seemed like there were always people coming and going. So she peeks, like she opens the door just to like, what the fuck? She hears who she reported as Kaylee saying, I think someone's here. Now, you live in a house that people come in all the time. There's lots of parties. Now, it is 4 a.m., but it's 4 a.m. on a Saturday, which means Sunday's a day off. And your roommate, who has an ex-boyfriend just down the hill, she's playing with her dog, and you hear, I think someone's here. You don't know, is it Jack, her boyfriend, is whatever. In the affidavit, it said, they think it could have been Xana, because Xana had a DoorDash at 4 o'clock and was on her phone, or at least her phone was going in TikToks at 4:12. So they think, Xana was awake, and they're like, well, maybe Xana said, I think someone's here. I don't think so, because of where her bedroom was and how far away Xana was versus if she peeked out her door basically, she could, if she stepped out, she could look up and see the stairs that went up to the floor. She would have to take like one step, turn right, step up, and go into the living room and then down the hallway to see Xana. Or she could walk straight out of her bedroom, take a slight turn to the left, and then from her bedroom door, she could see the kitchen sliding door. But it was like a little shift, little jog into that area. So Dylan hears, I think someone's here, okay, she shuts the door. Then a little bit later, she hears crying, and she opens her door again. And this time, from down in Xana's direction, she hears a man's voice saying, it's okay, I'm here to help you. Or it's okay, it's going to be all right. I can't remember the exact wording. Then she's probably confused. Things are weird. She shuts the door again. She hears more crying. So she opens the door, and this time she sees a man in a black mask, like a COVID mask, right? Just his eyes. I don't know if he had his hood up or not. It said dressed all in black. So to me, I imagine a hoodie and black pants. And she sees him walk by her and leave. And she said she was frozen. Then she shut her door, locked it, and I assume hid. Now, what I understand about the roommate that is confusing people is it doesn't help that the media is like, and she didn't call 911. She waited to call 911. Here's the deal. Somebody, now, and I don't know if this is accurate, but somebody on the internet, and I think this is true, only because it makes sense psychologically to me. They said Dylan had PTSD from a childhood incident and didn't sleep well, and when she slept, she would have nightmares, and she wasn't always sure if the nightmares were real or not. So if she's been out drinking, she's woken at 4 o'clock. The thing she heard was exactly like a dream, weird nightmare. I think someone's here. Don't worry, I'll help you. And then you see the actual like boogeyman. She went to bed. She may have just been freaked out and hid until it was daylight. In other instances, in the Richard Speck case, in the with the where the nurses in Chicago in 1966, if you want to look that up, there was a surviving nurse. She hid from like midnight until 8 o'clock the next morning until it got until the sun came out. And she was a nurse, so she was a little more prepared to see bodies. I think she was a nurse in training. In the case of Ted Bundy in the Chi Omega murders, when he was on his sort of spree in Florida, one girl slept through it, I believe, in the Chi Omega house. Another girl heard things, but just hid. They suffered horrible trauma, and they didn't just run and tell. They waited. If you've ever been, I don't even know how to describe it, but mostly it happens, I think, to most normal people, like in junior high when your parents out of the house and you're like, I'm going to get a knife and sleep on my bed because I'm scared. And every little sound, you imagine it. So if you're actually seeing things and you have a background of PTSD, experiencing that, and I assume she either hid or stayed in a room for a short time, and they're not saying this, I don't think, David, but I will tell you, just like I told you, if you go back and watch why would you, but just say you did. I said, I thought that one of the roommates, that I thought they heard something traumatized. That even if they were on the basement level, they weren't talking about the roommates. They weren't saying anything. And I'm like, they know something and they're protecting them, and they heard something, and it probably is, they could be in danger. Well, now that they have the person in custody, they're saying a little bit more. But I assume that at some point, even if it was the next morning, that she peeked out again and either went upstairs, like tiptoed up there, like she was going to tell or say to Xana, are you like, I had the wackiest dream. Oh my God. I swear to God. I don't know if somebody was really here, like a friend, but I swear to God, I thought something happened last night and I was losing my mind. And instead of running into her friends where they could all laugh at, oh my God, Dylan, it's okay. We understand. Instead, she saw dead bodies. And I believe then, because of her past PTSD, she was the unresponsive roommate. I believe she had an episode of what they call akinetic catatonia, like being catatonic. Like she sort of had a little, like her mind shut the front door of her mind and she blanked. I think she was the unresponsive roommate. I think that the door opened downstairs, that bottom door that a passerby said was open around 8:30. I wonder if she didn't open that door and then, but was was out of it, too afraid to go outside, didn't want the door closed because she didn't want to be inside because she didn't know who was with her, and stood there, and it was freezing until that woke up Bethany, whose room was just on that floor. And then Bethany freaked out because Dylan wasn't talking and she was in a catatonic. This is all speculation. There's been a homicide, especially multiple. They are freaked out. They do hide. They hide for hours, just like you might if you heard. And I'm sure they didn't say everything she heard. The bedroom of the girls was right above her bedroom. I am sure she heard stuff. So that is what I think. All right. I don't know if Suzanne's still listening, but that was your little recap. The rest of the chitter chatter on the internet today has to do with how Brian turned his phone on and off, how he had, it's still amazing to me. I don't know how quickly he focused in on them, but he was in their neighborhood before his classes start. And he lived in housing. I don't think everybody's saying, so this started in June. No, it didn't. I think they pulled his historical cellular information from June because he graduated in May. I think he went out probably to Washington State University, filled out his paperwork for his graduate assistantship, did all the stuff to get housing when he came back in the fall. But I don't know how often he came back. But I think he moved back there relatively like 1 or 2 weeks before the semester started because he was in university housing, and that's when that opens up, I believe. I don't think he took classes over the summer. So he graduated from DeSale in May in Pennsylvania. He had applied for this assistantship for the program, the PhD program in Washington. He needed to go out and fill paperwork. He needed to go, you know, get his assistantship stuff in order, get his housing in order. But I don't think he moved there until probably August, which is like, how fast did he see these kids? I do think he honed in on them. Did he start trolling that neighborhood? Did he know somebody else in that neighborhood? It's all going to be very interesting. But he did turn off his phone between 2:47 and 4:48 the night of the murders. So if he didn't do it, it's really weird that his phone was all around in the neighborhood. And I also wonder, oh, thank you, Suzanne. I think, I mean, but that is my interpretation, what I already know, right? So I can make the facts fit my idea. But I think we will, and we'll find out more, right? So like I said, this is edutainment. I will educate you a little bit about, as far as I know. I always call it AFOC, as far as I know, right? Or as far as we know right now. AFOC, little r, little n. AFOC RN. As that sounds dirty, doesn't it? Shrink. As far as we know right now. And I always say that because with new information, it can change the whole idea of what went on. But I do think, I mean, I don't think, obviously Dylan had nothing to do with it. That's ridiculous. So him being in that neighborhood 12 times before, he must be a narcissist too, because he's getting caught all the time for driving badly. Isn't that weird? He was caught that day he first went into their neighborhood, driving, stalking, hunting. I don't know what we want to call it. Maybe he knew somebody. Maybe he didn't meet somebody in that neighborhood, and then he saw the house, saw the girls. I don't know. Did he somehow hone in on these girls when he was doing his paperwork in June? Did he hone in on them while he was a student in Pennsylvania and saw them online and decided to apply to school in Washington, to go there specifically to go and see what he was going to do? I mean, we don't know. We do know he followed them on Instagram. We do know people can follow anybody anywhere when they're on the interwebs, right? And we don't know, even serial killers that have been interviewed don't know why they pick who they pick, even though they tend to always have a type. So do you think this was his first time killing? So probably, I'm like 85% sure. Why do I say that? Well, he wasn't quite 28. I think he wanted to kill them later. I think he wanted to kill them in the spring before the semester end, before the school year ended, because then he would naturally then be going home for the summer, which would give him a great cooling off period and less time. He wouldn't be sticking around and driving around and being tempted to go back. He studied under Dr. Catherine Ramsland at DeSale. She was an expert on BTK. He is BCK, which the interview room, Chris McDonough said something about that. But I think there's, again, we don't know. Did he choose to go to that program because she wrote a book about BTK and he wanted to learn about BTK more? I mean, we don't know, chicken before the egg, right? But we do know he studied with her. He knew all about Dennis Rader, who was in Wichita, Kansas. If you watch on YouTube, you can watch the documentary that, it's called Killer. Oh, what is it? Look up documentary about BTK. It came out last year, I believe, in 2021. if you watched all the media about Idaho, the Idaho 4, and then you reflect back and watch what happened in Wichita, Kansas, it is eerie. Dennis Rader was in school for the first time. He was doing his undergraduate in criminal justice, but he was married with kids. And in the meantime, on his and he had a job, he also hunted and on his breaks. And he first killed or um I'm not going to say the name right. I'm the dyslexic detective, by the way, in phonetics. I just have that's my weakness. Or it's not Ortega or Ortia family. There was a family in Wichita, Kansas. That was the first time he let himself do what he had fantasized about, and he killed the mother, the father, a 9-year-old boy, and a young lady. 4 people. Oh, and there was a dog there. Lucky. Can you imagine that? And the dog lived. So at the beginning of this, everybody was like, "Oh, why did the killer let the dog live? Why didn't they kill the dog? Blah, 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 blah." It must be that's why everybody thought, "Oh, it must be the other kid who, it must be the boyfriend who co-owned the dog, and that's why he didn't kill the dog." And it turned out, I mean, we don't know why, but I think he was not copying, but BTK was his role model. He was going to be 28. He turned 28 soon after the murders. He killed 4 people. BTK killed 4 people. They were like a family. The only thing he did different was at night. He let the dog live, just like Dennis Rader let the dog live. So I do think that this was his first time and he was trying to be very organized. I think he could have left that sheath. I don't think he used a K-bar. How do you like them apples? I think we'll find out he used a different, I think it still was a 7-inch fixed blade knife because they know from the autopsy it had whatever knife it was. They could tell about how long it was. They could tell about the blade and they could tell that it had a hilt because it would leave a bruise every time. I don't want to be too graphic, sorry. But I don't think it was a K-bar. Everybody said how bad K-bars are, that they break, that they don't stay sharp. They're not really great for hand-to-hand combat. It used to be something that the Marines gave out, but everybody who uses it says it wouldn't be the best weapon. But if you were trying to make the police think it was somebody in the military and it was a K-bar, maybe you would just leave that sheath there. But when he unsnapped it, he didn't quite, and I'm sure he was wearing gloves, but you can sweat. Did you know that? You can sweat through gloves. And I think he left just enough epithelial, skin cells when he popped it open. I don't think he dropped it because there wasn't blood splatter, as far as we know. Maybe there was, but it just said it was left by Maddie's feet, which seems weird. And I think he's a freak, if it is him, who would want to play that sort of mind games like, oh, I bet you're gonna look for a K-bar now in a military guy. Ha ha ha. You know. Um, you live very close to oh yeah. Wow. Now the Tallahassee one, that was a spree killing. I don't know if I think he had killed before. They found out. But he was killing very quickly with very little cooling off periods and killing 2 people. And he was not bright and he got caught pretty fast. And he got caught pretty fast. He was just a violent person. I mean, he probably belonged in a mental hospital. Yes, yeah. The Ted Bundy ones, one of the girls did unalive, as we say on YouTube, friendly words, unalive herself because she felt so bad. So that's another reason when people are all over Dylan, shut the front door, you ass hats. Is that nice enough? Sorry. But would you like to drive the little girl over the edge and then you'll have a new story to talk about? I mean, it's cruel. It's not being empathetic. It's not being sympathetic. I think she will get help. I I, I know that one Jennifer Coffendorfer, I think I'm saying her name right. She's who is located in Florida. She first talked a lot about the media. The first time I saw her was about the Brian Laundrie, Gabby Petito case. And she mentioned the FBI who were involved very quickly. And we now know from the affidavit that the Idaho State Police were in there right away. This wasn't a screwed up scene. There weren't a bunch of like, small town rubes walking around the scene going, oh, what are we going to do here? They had the state police and the FBI, and the FBI have victims advocates. And if she does, like her friend, supposedly, I mean, as far as I know, right now posted that she had like a history of PTSD, I am sure they will get her help. There are victim funds that she can apply for. That poor child is going to need all of our care. And I mean, if I could speak to her, I would just say, A, it's not your fault. B, just consider yourself. It's not, she shouldn't, survivor's guilt is like, why me? And she needs to understand luck of the draw. Maybe because he already killed 4 and 4 was his magic number to be like Dennis Rader. Or maybe because you're going to do something, Dylan. That's what I would tell her. Maybe because you are special in your own way to do something. After Kaylee's boyfriend, they went after the guy who was nice enough and walked her home, that we found out, no, he was with her. And she was probably like, they were just drunk, whatever. That's why they didn't talk. It wasn't that Jack of all the Jacks, right? It wasn't that Jack. It wasn't, it was a stranger. And I said from the beginning, it wasn't a college kid who just was angry about something because this was brutal. And I said, it looks like a serial killer to me. Looks like, woohoo, they're out there. All right. Yeah. Well, I heard, listen, Suzanne, take a break. I take breaks from true crime. It's called Left Coast Revivals. Her name's Laura Codwell. Laura Codwell does thrifting, and she does it on the West Coast. She's located in Oregon, but she drove through Idaho. She does it on the West Coast. She's located in Oregon, but she drove through Idaho. It is beautiful. This is not indicative of the town. He was from Pennsylvania. It's indicative of they're just monsters among us sometimes. That's why lock your doors. What can we do? You can lock your doors. If you live in a house with a lot of people, you can lock your bedroom door. If you live as a woman alone, you can put a pair of work boots outside on your porch. Keep a couple things around. The guy lives there, even if he doesn't. You can have a dog. You can have a sound of a dog. But don't hate Idaho. It's not their fault. But boy, Idaho's been through it, right? Oh, by the way, speaking of Idaho, Monkey Vaughn, who has been missing for over now this July, it'll be 2 years. So it's been a year and a half. The woman Sandra Wondry, who was arrested for not reporting a death because she said there was a death. And then when she was in court, she looked like she had an IQ of about 70. And I think the people around her were using her because her dad owned the house. And these people tended to be congregating there who were involved in, YouTube friendly words, children of the corn type business. They were in the corn business. And now somebody on Twitter said that the 2 gentlemen that they had been looking for were found and have been cooperating. The guy from Toledo, Ohio, and the guy from, I don't know if it was Fargo, but Bismarck, maybe in North Dakota. There were people that traveled like back and forth through Idaho to California and, in the corn industry, the child corn industry, I think. So maybe we'll find out. But she actually is having a hearing this week it's a, what do they call it? A status hearing, and it's going to be about her competency. So in Idaho, if you follow the Vallow Daybell case, you will know this, but if not, I will tell you because it's probably going to come up in the Moscow case and in the Mikey Vaughn case. Idaho does not have, you can't say you're mentally incompetent. You can, and then you'll have to be restored to competency, but there is no insanity defense. You can't get off a crime saying I was insane at the time. They don't have that anymore in Idaho. They got rid of it. I believe the guy who tried to assassinate Reagan, that might have been, he might have been from Idaho. I don't know. There was, they, after that happened, I believe that was the impetus that their lawmakers wrote something that said, no, we don't have the insanity defense. So you can go away to the state mental hospital, but you will be tried. You've been waiting for, oh, well, Lori, when everybody said, why isn't anybody arrested? You will be, if you really looked and did a statistical analysis, all murders take years and years usually to come to court. So Lori and Chad unalived the children. Allegedly, they did this in the fall of 2019. So 20, 21, 22. So it's been 3 years, but they weren't arrested until almost 6 months later. They were arrested in the summer of 2020. It's going to take a while. It's a very, and the more complex the case, the harder it is, because everybody's got to investigate every part of it. We have to be patient, but at least they're in jail. Sometimes people get off. There's 2 cases in the San Diego was saying, like, San Diego area in California has lots of true crime. And they had at least 2 major, huge cases where it involved people with a lot of money, and they ran. They were like going to court. They were going to be in jail, put on trial, and they took off. And one is in Spain to be extradited, and the other is in Venezuela still waiting to be extradited. They can't even get them to court. So at least, I mean, they are in jail. And, you know, personally, I can't say they did it, allegedly, but allegedly, I'm glad that they are in jail. Will she go to court over Charles Vallow? She has murder charges about Charles in Arizona. So how that happens when you commit crimes in multiple states decide who has the best case, and you go there first, and then after that you're charged in the next state. I don't know if you remembered Harvey, look at me, my brain won't even let me say his name. I see his big Weinman, the mogul guy who was essaying actresses for jobs and even against their will. Okay, he was first, I think he was, I don't know, I don't remember what state, but he was like prosecuted in California, prosecuted in New York. So was a lot. So you can be in multiple states. So if Idaho doesn't get her, Arizona gets dibs next. She's not getting out of that one for sure. She's in jail forever. I mean, Weinstein. Thank you, Suzanne. Harvey. I'm going to blame it both on dyslexia. I can't blame it on my nightcap because it's half full. I believe that would be 2/3. Sorry, bad on fractions too. All right. So if you want to know more about the Idaho indictment and more about the case, we'll talk about it probably every night forever. But please go watch Emily D. Baker. Emily D. Baker, she has a YouTube channel, and Friday she did a live, and she explains, she's a real lawyer. She's in Tennessee now. She used to work for the LA prosecutor's office. She breaks it down. She reads it, and we love her. Yeah, you love her too. Yeah, she's great. She really, like I say, I listen to psychologists. I listen to lawyers. I listen to law talking guys. And then I just listen to like Mel in Florida. He does great lives. He's just a regular guy, but he's really interesting. And he's got great crowdsourcing. Oh, and then I follow Big E documents at Chasing Paper 89 at Twitter. Why? Because he's got all the documents, and he'll get them. He makes them available. So I try to overlay everybody in a Venn diagram so that I can provide you guys with some what I see as accurate facts, and then I tell you my theories. Speaking of facts and theories that talks like that, Nor Jasmine, another creator I love. She tells a real story every time, and man, she is good. I love her. All right. Let's get on to the second biggest case that everybody's talking about. It. We talked about it last night. I'm trying to check my time. Oh, I'm not going to make it by midnight. Oh, yeah, I found her. Yes. I was watching her before, just, I forget why, but yes, the Depp case. LawTube blew up. All right, so I had Emily D. Baker. Okay, Anna Walsh. And her husband, Brian Walsh. Isn't Brian Walsh? I feel like that's the name of somebody famous already, like an actor on 90210. Was that guy's name Brian Walsh? No, it was the character's name, right? Wasn't the character called Brian? The family was Walsh. Oh, that dark-haired girl who everybody hated. Oh, this is a fun game I'm going to play. Suzanne, who's the dark-haired girl on 90210? The dark-haired girl. Shannon Doherty's character. Their family's name was Walsh, right? What was Sharon Doherty's name? Why can't I remember? Suzanne, tell me, what was Sharon Doherty's name on 90210? This has turned into just Trish trivia instead of Patti Lee's True Crime Grapevine. All right. So, anyways, Brian Walsh, this Brian Walsh is not on 90210. He's on the whole other side of the country that way. In Massachusetts, very affluent section. We had KCT last night who told me, who lived in a nearby town, that where the Walshes live, very, very, as Anna Delvey would say, exclusive. They're poor. They're not poor. They're rich. And we're not sure exactly. It's a real strange case. She disappeared. She was last seen. And it says January 1st at 4 or 5 a.m. So it sounds like, they partied or they had somebody over on like New Year's Eve. And then she was last seen at 5 a.m. on New Year's Day. And her husband said, oh, well, she had this like emergency at work. They live in Massachusetts, but she gets on an airplane at Logan Airport after taking a ride share and goes to Washington, D.C. to do real estate. Don't ask me what it's about. She speaks with an Eastern European accent, so I assume she immigrated here from Eastern Europe. And I'm like, Eastern Europe goes to Washington on secret trips. But no, she likely is not in Washington. She likely is in a landfill. Now, I don't know if Brian Walsh was watching, the Quentin Simon case this summer and watched how hard it was for the FBI, even though they knew right away that Quentin Simon was probably in the landfill. Maybe he got an idea. I don't know. Yeah, Brenda Walsh. Thank you. So here's what we found out. So as of last night, the husband was arrested. We didn't know why. Today we found out in their house, in their basement, they found blood. They found a knife that was bent with blood on it. And CNN just reported within the last hour or so that now this is one of those things of CNN said, like news didn't used to be like this. They said that the cops said. I mean, it's hard to take the news any more seriously than you take a YouTuber, right? Because what's this? I mean, at least I tell you, this is a grapevine. I try to tell you my sources, but can you imagine if I was like, well, let me just tell you, this person said, I can't tell you who, but they said. But anyways, CNN reported that the cop said that he had Googled how to dismember a woman weighing 115 pounds. Like you would put your wife's weight into Google, first of all. No. She was 5'2", 115 pounds. So it matched her. He's Googling about how to dismember and get rid of a body. Oh, not only that, but the reason he did get arrested, the reason he was arrested, sorry, it wasn't just that they found some blood in his house, which would be bad enough. Oh, no, they arrested him for lying about where he was because he said on January 2nd, he took his child out for ice cream, but or maybe it was the third. For 2 days he lied about where he was, and I love that it was his ice cream when really he went to Home Depot and bought $450 worth of cleaning products, as one does, in a town over with cash, as one does. $450 of tarps, uh, surgical gloves, your basic murder kit stuff, basically bleach, all your murder kit stuff. Um, like if you were Googling about how to dismember a body and maybe you wanted to buy the stuff to do it. I don't know. Maybe he was writing a novel. I don't know. It's only alleged, very alleged, allegedly. So, yeah, he's in hot water. He was smiling at his arraignment. We've talked about legally. So, your arraignment is just where they read you charges against you. His are lying to the police and inhibiting. What do you call that? Obstructing an ongoing investigation by lying to the police, like delaying them, not telling them the truth about where he was. He also was supposed to be home on a monitor. Ask me why. Suzanne, ask me why. Are you still there, Suzanne? I'll tell you why, ladies and gentlemen, true crime fans. He had taken, I think he had the actual Andy Warhols sent to him from a friend in Poland, or maybe that was his story. And he was selling them online to somebody else for $800,000. And it was fraud. They weren't real Andy Warhols. He sent fakes to the person and the person figured it out. So that was in 2018 and he was going to be sentenced soon for that. So yeah, Brian's not a trustworthy guy. Yeah, fake art. There's again, if you want to watch something besides true crime, there's a YouTube. It's a show I believe on the BBC, but you can get it on YouTube, and it's called Fake or Fortune, and it is great. It's about people who have somehow, sometimes they bought it, sometimes it was handed down through their family, but they have what they think is a famous artwork, and these two people go through all the science and provenance, which is the history, to find out if that's actually a piece of art by the person that they think, and then they say how much it's worth. Very interesting show. So if they would have seen these Andy Warhols, they would have been like, yeah, this is a fake. You got taken. So he sued the guy. 2018, he was in court for that criminal case. And he was out on bail, and he had a ankle monitor on. So I don't know if he cut off the monitor. I don't know if he left just with the monitor on. I don't know how he was able to lie to the police about where he was. And his defense attorney was saying like, "Oh no, he was at home this whole time." Honey, Home Depot has cameras. So he made up all these stories. He wasn't in the place where he said he wasn't even supposed to be leaving his house. They went to, his other things he went to was, Whole Foods and, I forget where else, innocuous, normal things, when really, no, innocuous, normal things, when really, no, he wasn't doing anything that first day. That day he was probably going to, he went to his mother's house because they tracked the trash from his mother's house, the dumpster there. They're now looking in the, just like they did for Quentin Simon's body. They're looking in that landfill. People, don't try to get rid of bodies. Number one, I mean, I'm not trying to help a criminal, but come on, do not Google it. I always say hashtag Google that shit because, you can Google most things, but do not Google how to kill people. Number one, you're going to be a suspect at some point if it's anybody you know, and come on, it is, because you don't kill people you don't know unless you're Brian Kohlberger, and even he was stalking them and finding them on, Instagram. You can't really do a crime unless you leave your phone alone and don't use a computer. And at that point, how are you going to do it? It's stupid. Don't do crimes any of the times. All right. So we'll be watching. I mean, he's obviously probably going to be indicted tomorrow. He has on this charge, gosh, he's got a sentencing on the art fraud. coming up. He has, I think he's in custody still because they put a 500,000 cash bond on him, and I don't think he made bond. I hope he didn't bond out. When these rich people bond out, they leave. So I hope he didn't. I think he's a flight interest, and they have 3 little kids, between 2 and 6, 3 boys, and so that's horrible. All right. Speaking of husbands who allegedly kill their wives when they have 3 kids, Larry Miliete. Larry Miliete. You heard that Maddie was working. Oh, it was okay. So Maddie and I believe one of the other girls worked at Mad Greek in Moscow. It had vegetarian options. I don't know if you like Greek food, but and you remember Brian's thing about not liking pans. So in a Greek restaurant, where's the meat? It's gyro meat, and it's usually on a spit, although they do have chicken a lot of the time. But if he did, so I would, if he didn't like to do that, I would find it weird that he did that. Suzanne, I'm going to give you my short thing. I think Xana is pictured with her dad and her sister. Her sister was a senior, a marketing major at Washington State University. So I think Xana and maybe some of the girls went to Washington State University for things, and he may have seen her there. That's my guess. If you didn't like stalk him beforehand and find him, like knowing he was, I don't know. So, but he could have seen them at the Mad Greek. He could have stopped for a Greek salad, right? A Greek salad is all vegetarian, right? Greek salad. Oh, sometimes vegetarians don't like cheese either. I don't know. But yes, he could have been there. We will find out more. Like I said, that probable cause affidavit is just enough to tell you he probably caused the crime. We'll find out more. I'm sure they have more on him. So we're going from Massachusetts there. Sorry, jumping through the country again. Closer, taking a shortcut back through Idaho, as one does. And we're going to end up in, I have to say the name. It looks like Chula. Yeah, it is Chula Vista, right? It's kind of said phonetically, which is strange, California. So in 2021, almost exactly 2 years ago, on January 7th in 2021, Maya Miliete was seen and heard from the last time on this earth. She had called a divorce attorney that day. Her daughter's birthday was supposed to be soon after, and she did not show up for it. Her sister, Mary Chris, right, was very, and her whole family was very worked up. Where was she? They had 3 kids. The next day, Larry Miliete, unlike Brian, does not take his phone with him, or it is off, and travels 12 hours away for the day with his 4-year-old son. We don't know where he went. So he went probably 5 to 6 hours out, and then it was 5 to 6 hours back. And maybe it was only 4.5 to 5 hours because maybe he had to bury something and get rid of something. So they have been, I mean, that's very hard. That's a huge circle because you can drive really far in 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours, even 4 hours. I mean, just think about the time. So they have not found, as far as I know right now, they have not found Maya. But last year, the DA in that county had enough evidence from what was found in his house, what was found on his computer, to charge him with unaliving his wife. So he has a preliminary hearing. So he was arrested on October 19th, 2021. And he has been in jail this whole time. His preliminary hearing, which is the one which is where he will present evidence. He's allowed to present evidence. The other side will present evidence, and then the judge will decide if it should be bound over and he should go to trial for this case. They expect it will last for 3 weeks, and When does that is also Wednesday. So we're gonna see Liliana Simon in Georgia first, because East Coast time, and then at the end of the day, Larry Miliete. So if you're watching the YouTubers who stream things live, those are two big things that are happening on Wednesday. And that who knows what we're gonna see out of the Walsh guy. So oh, I'm sorry. Brian Walsh will be in court on February 9th, the next time for his wife's disappearance, I believe. All right. Yeah, so the Milioti case. I'm going long. There is a lot more to talk about. I'm going to just mark I'm going to mark to start here tomorrow because I still have more things to tell you. Thank you, Suzanne, for spending time. If you're still here, thank you for hanging out on the True Crime Grapevines nightcap. I will be back tomorrow around 11 o'clock to have Eastern Standard Time to have another nightcap. If you guys have any suggestions, I would love it if you would hit that like button, like and subscribe. I don't ask for any money. I can't even imagine asking any money or having like ads that I want to push something. The only thing I like to push is probably maybe a certain like Tito's, if you want me as your spokesperson. I don't know, knitting. I'd like to knit. Oh, I will be telling you about some stories. I'm a big reader. In fact, I told people last night, my mom threw out a book in the hospital that I had spent the night with my dad because it wasn't a murder book and they thought I didn't like a book. But I'm only going to tell you guys about murder books. And I'm ordering some forensic psychology books. So I thought maybe I could maybe add some of that in there. You'll hear and you'll be back tomorrow. Yay. All right. So Suzanne, do you have a suggestion for a nightcap? Anything we should be drinking tomorrow? Let me know. You're a margarita girl? I just learned how to make a Moscow Mule, and it is very tasty, I must say. I even got the glasses. You guys can't see. Here, maybe I'll show you. What if I just did this? What if I just pinned it and moved it? Look over. Can you see over there? It's kind of hard to see, but I have a ton of glasses up on that shelf. I have a glass for any kind of drink. I even have a little Moscow Mule glass. I have a cognac. I don't know if you can see this. Cognac snifter now. Snifter. I still can't say that word right. Hello, dyslexia. So, oh, you like Crown. My sister's, her baby girl's first birthday, I had a lot of that. I actually was going to have my belly button pierced, by a friend that day. I don't know if I can deal with it. But you know what? I love that purple bag. So for you, Suzanne, I will go get some Crown and we'll be royals tomorrow. What did we say? Right? But not the annoying kind. We're not going to whine about our jobs. We're going to be the good royals. All right. So I will see you guys tomorrow night. Thank you very much for showing up. If you have any comments about what you want me to talk about more, any more questions, just leave them below. I will read them. And all right. Bye.